It's Thankful Thursdays, Thankful Thursdays, Thankful Thursdays, Thankful Thursdays. Just wanted to log on, y'all. I was sitting here and I was thinking, how could I be useful? What could I do? And I thought, you know what? Let's hop on. It's Thursday and we're thankful. So I was reading my Bible and contemplating on scripture. So I said, let me just go on and drop something and then see who wants to converse with me. This is going to be an open forum. This is an open forum for anyone that wants to join in and discuss. I had a wonderful person comment and I brought her in on the live last time. And it was not last time, but in my past doing these lives. And it was so much fun. And I hope I can attract someone else that wants to converse with me and give up some of their testimonies or even speak to some things that they may have questions on, and we can have a conversation. Super, super, super excited about it. Today's conversation that I really want to speak to is, do we know the God that we serve? Do we really know the God that we serve? Do we know God, y'all? Like, I know we have this idea of God. I know many of us, we read biblical scripture and we have this visual of what God desires of us and what God wants, but I don't think we really capture the fullness of God and all of God's truth. We pigeonhole God a lot of times and we put God in these boxes as if God is just this pristine entity that you got to have everything perfect to be aligned to. And that's just not the truth. Friend, God has met me in my lowest time, friend. God has met me when I was out and about doing all kinds of stuff. I'm not talking about just wickedness. I'm not a wicked person, so that wouldn't align to someone like me. But I have noticed God in the strangest places. It's not always the church house. Because I wasn't always a church goer. I was the girl that would get up and go to church on Sunday. I would. But I was the girl that was at the club till 2:00 in the morning on Saturday night also. And I would miss church on some Sundays. I wasn't an avid church goer. It wasn't like I went religiously. I went, but it wasn't religiously. I've had an earthly experience. And God needs us to have such things, y'all. The topic of the conversation today is, do we know the God that we serve? Y'all, I'm going to use certain excerpts throughout the Bible to give you a picture of God that may not be in alignment to what you all may have idealized as who God truly is and in his totality. I like to use Moses as an example because, during the walk of Moses, we see a phenomenal movement of God with Moses. God would move through Moses openly amongst these children, and he would look to lead by way of Moses so that he can enact his signs and wonders amongst these children. He would use Moses as the leader that would allow God to go before the nations, not just the children, but the entire world at that time, and display signs and wonders that they had not ever seen. It would be God using signs and wonders that would create an awe amongst the entirety of the world. And how did God do the signs and wonders? How did he move through signs and wonders? He moved through strangeness, y'all. I'll keep telling you. God moves through strangeness. God humbles those that think they're wise. I'm telling you. God would move through strangeness. When God came to Moses and told Moses that he was going to go and take these people out of Egypt in chapter 4 of the book of Exodus, God comes to Moses and tells Moses all these things that he's going to do in the face of Pharaoh. And Moses is intimidated. he's like, I don't know if I should do this or not. I don't know if I'm capable, like most of us are. He's looking at himself and he's saying, I don't know if I'm capable of doing this. I need some reinforcement here. I'm just one man and I stutter, I'm tall. Moses is like, I don't know if I'm the guy you need to do this job. He's saying, you want me to go before Pharaoh and command Pharaoh to do all these things. Chapter 4, the book of Exodus. And Moses answered and said, but behold, they will not believe me, nor hearken unto my voice. They won't listen. They won't listen to me. They will not believe me when I tell them that you have sent me to do these things. For they will say, the Lord hath not appeared unto thee. Moses is telling God in so many words, I need some substance. You want me to go before these people? These people are not going to want to hear anything I have to say. They already know about me, God. They already know about the things that I've done. They don't like me. The Egyptians are the last group of people that I need to go in front of. These people are hunting me. I had to flee from this kingdom. Sure, I know this kingdom. Yes, I grew up in it. But I had to flee for what I did. Out of righteousness, I did the right thing. I stood for a righteous cause. But in doing so, it created a divide. And these are a proud people. These are people that are solidified in their knowing of spiritual prowessness. And I've waged a spiritual war. I unalived an Egyptian. I waged a spiritual war with the high priest of Egypt and ran him out of Egypt. And then after unaliving the Egyptian, I ran to the same kingdom that the high priest of Egypt is now king of. And then I ran him out of there. And now he's back in Egypt. And you want me to go and face these people? These people are so angry with me. And then now you want me to say I'm coming because of you? Moses is saying, behold, they will not believe me, nor hearken unto my voice. They will not listen. For they will say, the Lord hath not appeared unto thee. They're thinking I'm lying. They're going to think everything I'm saying to them is a lie. They're going to say all of my experiences that I tell them that I've had with you are going to be fabrications. They will not believe me. And the Lord said unto him, what is that in thine hand? And he said, a rod. Moses is saying to God, I got to get you to understand this. These people are going to think that all the experiences I'm telling them that I'm having with you, that justify me coming before them, that makes me coming before them make sense, they will not believe. They will default to mundane physicalities. They're going to want to go over my resume. Okay, remember when you were in the kingdom and you ran Balaam, our high priest, out of here? You ran him out of here. Did you do that because you wanted to be high priest? They're going to try to make it make sense by way of mere physicalities. Okay, were you vying for Balaam's job? Is that why you waged war with Balaam? Okay, and then after you waged war with Balaam, you unalived an Egyptian. Why did you do that? Are you trying to wage war with us? And then after you unalive the Egyptian, you run to Egypt. You run to Cush, the kingdom in which Balaam ran to. Were you chasing Balaam? Were you trying to unalive Balaam because you were jealous of Balaam? All these things are what people do to try to make sense of your presence. They'll dwindle it down to mere physicalities. They never cross-reference it to anything spiritual. And Moses is knowing this. And this is why he tells God, they're not going to believe me. They're not going to listen to me. And they're going to tell me I'm lying. They're going to say I'm making it all up. And God said, what is that in thine hand? And Moses said, a rod. God says, okay, I can understand that. That's exactly what they're going to do. They're going to dwindle it down to a physical situation. They're not going to equate my power to you because they don't believe in me. They need to see a physical manifestation in order for them to believe. So guess what? We're going to give them a physical manifestation. And he said, cast it on the ground. And he cast it on the ground, and it became a serpent, and Moses fled from before it. He's afraid of what he sees. Moses is a high priest. He's a man of spirit. He's gone toe to toe with the high priest of Egypt. So you know he's seen this hat, y'all. I gotta adjust it. It's getting on my nerves. So Moses has gone toe to toe with the high priest of Egypt. He's seen all kinds of things in spirit. And you mean to tell me when he cast this rod down that this rod became a serpent and it was so strange that it scared Moses and he ran? This is the same serpent that comes and eats up all of the other serpents of Pharaoh's kingdom. It had to be a huge serpent. We're looking at this thing like it was a small little, it had to be monstrous. That's what would make it so weird and strange. It had to be something that was a total anomaly. Going from a slender rod, a cane, to a huge, monstrous serpent. And the Lord said unto Moses, put forth thine hand, and take it by the tail. And he put forth his hand and caught it, and it became a rod in his hand. He is able to create a thing, and he is able to make it go back to its original state. This is control. This is like what Solomon was doing when he was able to conjure up these demons and control them by countering the demon that leads them with it. See, most people think, oh, you know, when they get all these books, they do all this stuff, I'm going to conjure this, I'm going to do this, and I'm going to do that. You conjuring all of these spirits up to do your will, your wickedness. I hope you know how to control them, friend. I hope you do. God is showing this with Moses and this rod. God is showing true spiritual prowess is to be able to create change in this world and to control its manifestation, to limit its interaction in the realm. Not just create it and have it do as it wishes once you create it and now it's rogue and it will attack you, but to create it and call it forward, but then to bind it to your will and then even to impose your will upon it and make it go back to its original state as if it never happened. Most people know how to bring things forward. Call them up. That's easy. Friend, there's a ton of spirits all vying to be called up. That's like the That's like the best thing ever to a disembodied spirit. But when you call it up, friend, you better know what to do with it. And you better know how to put it back. Because if you don't, it's going to come for you. There are laws in the spiritual realm. And the laws are that if the spirit cannot align to you, it will find a host that it can align to. And in order to align to it, it must meet you at some sort of significant pathway that it can interact with you at, some vibratory frequency. It's got to be able to align. It's got to be able to find a way in. That means that your vibration must be low enough to meet it at its level. And most times, these spirits come forward and they don't have a host that they can align to because nobody's at that level. So they're just wandering, and now they're awoken and they're angry because they can't go back to rest and they can't go into a home to find rest. So who do they find a home with? Your low vibrational self. They'll find one right with you. Thus, everything you do is for you. Everything you do is for you. And excuse me. And the Lord said unto Moses, put forth thine hand and take it by the tail. And he put forth his hand and caught it, and it became a rod in his hand, that they may believe that the Lord God of their fathers, the God of Abraham, the God of Isaac, and the God of Jacob, hath appeared unto thee. God is saying, since you have told me the nature of these people, even though I knew it, but I sat you in that kingdom your entire life for you to be my expert of that kingdom without you even knowing it, without you knowing that later in your life I would introduce myself to you through strangeness. That's how God introduced himself to Moses, through strangeness. And it will be a lifetime of strange occurrences that God and Moses would have with one another. God would introduce himself to Moses through strangeness, and God would consistently interact with Moses through strangeness. Strangeness and God are synonymous. Synonymous. God does not move as fluidly and profoundly in the ordinary. And he's saying, thank you for telling me. Thank you for observing and knowing. Now I can legitimize what I'm going to do. I needed you to know that Pharaoh and his kingdom will not acknowledge you unless you come before them with a tangible reference point. And now that you said that, I can legitimize training you as to how to show and prove. This is what this is. You don't think God knew that Pharaoh and all of his constituents would want to see a sign and a wonder? You don't think that? But God needed Moses to admit it. God needed Moses to speak it to him so that God could legitimize doing it. Friend, there are a lot of things in this life that God wants to legitimize doing. God just needs you to raise yourself to the level of acknowledging that they need to be done and put it on the ears of God. And God says, here you go. God needs you to do your part in aligning to that so that you can get that. Alignment is everything. And God admits it in verse 5, that they may believe that the Lord God of their fathers, the God of Abraham, the God of Isaac, the God of Jacob, hath appeared unto thee. And the Lord said, Furthermore unto him, put now thine hand in thy bosom. And he put his hand into his bosom. And when he took it out, behold, his hand was leprous as snow. He puts his hand at his chest, and he takes it out, and his hand is white. It's leprous. And he said, put thine hand in thy bosom again. And he put his hand in his bosom again, and plucked it out of his bosom, and behold, it was turned as his other flesh. Now it's back to normal color. This is a prime example of God showing Moses that I'm going to show you how to call a thing forward, how to do a thing, and then how to turn it back to what it was. Complete mastery. Complete mastery. I'm gonna show you how to change something to something else, and then to change it right back. Like I said, most people only know how to change something to something else, and they leave it at that. And a lot of times they become slaves to that thing that they have changed to something else. They have become slaves to that which they have alchemized. They have no dominance over it. The more that they sit amongst it, the stronger the dominance they have that thing has over it. Whether it's a comfort, whether it's a mindset, you will abandon other mindsets, other ways of being for new philosophies based upon newness and comfort. You call a thing forward, you become enamored in that new thing, and you leave it at that. You never have the ability to go back and forth, showing mastery. So I wanted to lead with that aspect of who God is. God is a God that shows through himself through signs and wonders. God moves through strangeness, y'all. I'm here to tell you. Strangeness. Clouds are synonymous with God. Exodus chapter 25. When Moses goes upon Mount Sinai, all of the congregation of the people are there. There's lightning, there's thunder. The sky is dark. And verse 17 reads, and the sight of the glory of the Lord was like devouring fire on the top of the mount in the eyes of the children of Israel. And Moses went into the midst of the cloud and gat him up in the mount. And Moses was in the mount for 40 days and 40 nights. Moses has gone up into the cloud. He went into the cloud for 40 days and 40 nights. You mean to tell me that this devouring cloud is above the mountain for 40 whole days? A whole month. Fire. Just fixed above Mount Sinai. And the people are bewildered. They're like, where is Moses? Did Moses get unalived? 40 days? That's a long time. Strangeness. So much so that when Moses comes back down from the cloud, that the children are back to worshiping what they were worshiping in Egypt. They've reverted back. They're afraid. They feel abandoned. They don't have enough knowing of the God they serve to hold space. In fact, they are so afraid of what they see that it has provoked them to backtrack. Friends, I'm telling you, there will come things in your life at times when you walk with God that will be so frightening and harrowing that if you're not aligned properly, you will try to go back. You will try to find a back way out. But there is none. That's exactly what these children did. They were looking to find a back way out of a forward situation. Thank you, Banana Minion. I didn't see your like. Thank you. Y'all, if you like this live and I don't see you in real time, please know that I appreciate you and I thank you in advance. I just have not, I'm so engrossed in the conversation that I don't see the text or the acknowledgement. You will want to go back. But there is no back in a forward situation. And the situation itself at times comes upon you to test you, to see, will you go back? Is it in you or is it not? Because if it's in you and you are really grounded as you say you are, you will not retreat. There's nothing to retreat to. Yet these children were obviously not grounded enough in their knowing. And thus, neither was Aaron. They had no leadership because Moses had gone up to the mount and he left another person in charge that was never supposed to be a part of this promise that God had for Moses. And in doing so, this other person, Aaron, created this calf on behalf of the people. He could not stand in the gap and truly act as a leader in the absence of Moses. Couldn't. He buckled to the pressure of what the people wanted. He wanted to please the people because he himself was not grounded in the knowing. Because if he was, he would have coerced the people and said, no, we need to hold space. We need to continue doing what we're doing. But he didn't, because he wasn't embodying either. When we look at even David running from Saul and David not having ever any face-to-face interaction with God. David is pulling from his heart. David is the most relevant leader of Israel because David was not working with any more than any of us are working with. David did not have a face-to-face interaction with God. David did not have, some miraculous thing happen and something came out of the sky or an angel came before David and said that God wanted him to be this and that. David didn't have that. David is the most relatable because David interacted as many of us would. David is leaning in on his knowing. He's leaning in on his alignment. And he's allowing that to lead his way. David did not come from a phenomenally strong family tie. He didn't have a priest as a father. He didn't have that. He didn't have a support system. He wasn't loved like Joseph. But David had a knowing. And in David's walk, David would get to a junction where he would lean. What's really interesting is when David first ran from Saul, David goes to Either it's Abimelech or Ahimelech. I always get it mixed up. And he, not even that. Was it Abiathar? Darn it, y'all don't quote me on it. The priest was Abiathar. And David runs, whoever knows the truth of it, you can put it in the chat, correct me. And David runs to get weaponry. And he lies and he says, you know, I'm on business for the king. I left in a haste. I need some sort of weaponry. And the priest tells him, well, I don't have anything except for Goliath's sword wrapped behind the ephod. And David says, okay. And he takes the sword. Because David is most like us. David is saying, I don't need that ephod right now. I don't know what's going on. I need a weapon. I need something that's going to give me an advantage in case these men that I once led or that have a lot of faith and love for me that have now been turned, come for me. Because I know their mindset. I know how they do things. So I need a weapon. He doesn't reach for the ephod initially. He reaches for the sword of Goliath. It will be later, as David has interacted with Saul, he's got accustomed to his walk. He's accustomed to being on the run. He has a better idea of his positioning in this whole scheme of things. He doesn't really know what's going on. He never really gets the why of it. Even after Saul transitions, he never really gets the why. But what we find is during David's struggle and his journey in gaining vital experiences that he couldn't get any other way than through chaos, struggle, and fear, that David would not care about the why anymore. He would give up on the why. He would deal with what is. And what would be is that David would have monumental experiences, treasure troves of experiences that could last him lifetimes. The experiences that David got leveled him up spiritually, not just because he was on the run. There were probably tons of people that had been on the run. You got thieves that go on the run. You got all kind of people that go on the run. It was the spirit in which he was on the run. It was the method of the activities that propelled him on the run that made it a heightened spiritual experience for David. It wasn't just any kind of on the run kind of thing. It was a heightened experience because David was standing in righteousness. He was aligned properly to the power of God. So his running from Saul was different than it would be for a thief running from the police. It was different in the sense that the spirit was different. The moral, I don't even want to say morality of it. The righteous component of it prevailed. And in the righteous component, he had a separate set of experiences that were similar to maybe a thief running from the police, but different in the sense that God could intermingle himself deeply into that experience, giving David heightened experiences spiritually with God. He would be able to tap into the Holy Spirit to be able to get ideas and ways of thinking to overcome his situation that would heighten his experience. Taking it from a mundane, I'm running from the king kind of scenario to a heightened experience spiritually. It went from I'm running from the king to I'm gaining vital experiences that will allow me to lead a nation of people. It will allow me to lead courageous men, the same type of men that are hunting me. I will then, after I come out of this, be able to garner their respect. They will have no other choice but to respect David. Even if they didn't like him, they could say, I can respect it. I can respect that. And respect in that world is huge. Yet throughout David's walk, initially he didn't want the ephod. He wanted the sword at first. But isn't that how it goes? He wanted to contend. He said, if you want to come for me, I'm going to come for you. But as he kept on in his journey, dealing with all of the stuff bombarded upon him by Saul and Saul's people, he became accustomed to the situation. And no longer did he feel hunted in a sense. And now he can have a clearer view of what he's dealing with. And he could say, I don't need the sword anymore. I got the sword. I got what it takes to deal with this. I need the ephod now. He would need divination, another method in which God would deploy for the people to be able to use in situations that David found himself in. You see, God allowed the ephod to be a form of communication early on, before David was even thought of. Back when Moses was setting up the whole system, so that if in fact there ever were a scenario where one of God's children needs to get a word from God and they don't have a high priest and they don't have a tabernacle, that they can get a word from God. You see, this is how God works. God created everything, y'all. I know you want to think God only creates good stuff, but when we look in the book of Isaiah, chapter 46, verse 7, God said, I form the light and create the darkness. I make peace and create evil. I, the Lord, do all these things. God has created all of it in the beginning, so that he doesn't have to come back and recreate his creation. Really, the only time that we see God adding to his creation is when God created Eve. And God only did that because it was contingent upon Adam working out. If Adam aligns properly and he does as he was created to do, then I will create Eve. It was contingent upon Adam standing in his truth, in his creation. And after Adam showed that he was able to do that without being led to do that, he proactively took that mantle upon himself and did that. Then God could say, okay, I can now bless you with her. And how did he do it? He began naming. He took it upon himself to name things. Showing ownership. And then God says, okay, he's all right. He's going to work out. Now I'll create Eve. God saying in verse 7, that he creates everything, good and evil. Everything is God's, all of it. And so if God has created this system of things in its fullness so that nothing else needs to be added to it, everything that is needed is here now. There's nothing new that needs to be created. It's already here. Why would that? How do we know these things? If Adam was created to grow into a God, which he was, then there are tiers to Adam's development. At certain tiers, Adam eats baby food because he can only sustain that at that level. But then when he breaks past certain tiers, now he can have table food. Well, there are other beings on this planet that are not Adams. You have the fallen ones that ascended just like Adam did. They went through the same process. Yet we don't know the story. Was there any break in their creation? How did that happen? We don't really know the fullness of that. But we know that they're here. And that they ascended also. And in them ascending, they've grown from baby food, lesser forms of knowledge, to table food, higher forms of knowledge. And when you grow in that aspect, there are aspects of good and aspects of evil that you can intermingle with one another to create a whole thing. This is balance. But it was designed to be used in a balanced way. Yet, if you take one out of balance and they fall from their respective space into this prison, they call it a prison to the fallen ones, that scale of good and evil that was supposed to be balanced is now tilted. It's completely tilted. So there's complete imbalance. So what God created in wholeness to be good, to be like a warm summer night, that's that mid place between both extremes, has now been tilted in certain instances, dependent upon people you interact with. Because everyone in this realm is not a fallen angel, and everyone in this realm is not an Adam. And to the fallen ones that fell into this prism, or this prison they call a prison, I saw on social media, they say, oh, Earth is a prison. And I thought, no, Earth is somewhat a prism. It's a reflective space of light. It's the emanation of light and its beauty and bounty. All the things we see in this world are reflective of what light births. And if you think this is a prison, like people try to say, well, surely I sure want to know what heaven looks like, friend. Because this is a beautiful place. This is a beautiful place. These levels, this scale of good and evil, and all points in between, all the points in between these two extremes is expansive enough to meet all of our needs in this realm. This is the beauty of God. It's expansive enough to meet all of our needs. You can get every bit of your need met with this scale. And God says here, I created all of these things. It's just that you're out of balance. You're teetering on one side more than the other. And when you teeter on the wicked side, you're bound to the laws and the constraints of that temperature scale. It's too hot. It's too extreme for you because it wasn't created for you. Just as if you teeter on the good side too long. Too much of anything is not good. And you become constrained by the extremes of that environment. So if you teeter on the wicked side too much, you make that your focus. Why would you do that? Well, because the fallen ones fell, and God said that they were cursed to become evil spirits. They were cursed to become that. So anyone that aligns to that must align to that vibration. It comes with the territory. And in that territory, you are bound to that extreme, which is not conducive to your creation. So now you are bound to experiences that force you to react and to make decisions that you normally wouldn't have made had you not been in that area of the scale. Had you not been on that extreme side, you wouldn't have made those extreme decisions. And then the birth of those extreme decisions birth other extreme decisions. You have a whole family of extreme decisions that you're birthing because you're on the extreme side of a scale that you were designed to stay right in the middle of. Levels. This is my word for y'all today. I just wanted to come on and offer up a word to you. Anybody want to ask anything? Anybody want to come on and comment? I'm definitely interested in having you join me and communicate with me. Anybody I have a ton of people watching from the outside. I don't know why that happens. You're more than welcome to join. I don't know why you don't want to join. Anybody want to converse and have a conversation with me? Antibody. Yeah. You know what I saw today, and I thought it was so funny? I saw this guy, he was peeling a raw egg. He had a pair of tweezers, and he was taking the shell off of a raw egg. And I was just scrolling TikTok, and I saw it, and I said, that's interesting. And I sat there and I watched it, and I thought, it's not cracking, it's not breaking. He's very delicate with it. I said, let me tap and see how many people are watching this. And I went into the live. He had almost 600 people in there watching as he sat there and peeled a raw egg. And I thought, I come on TikTok and I do these podcasts and these Bible studies. I might have 4 people watching my stuff, y'all. Most of the time, it's just me. I thought, that's so weird. But it doesn't discourage me. I enjoy doing it. It don't bother me. But I thought that's funny. That's how it is, friend, with technology. Technology is interesting. Technology is very interesting. You love more than you'll ever know. I'll never stop telling you. Be good to yourselves and be good to one another.